Behind the perfect filters and curated feeds, some influencers harbored deadly secrets that would shock their millions of followers. The world of social media has created a new breed of celebrity. These digital stars build empires on carefully crafted personas, sharing every moment of their seemingly perfect lives with devoted audiences. But what happens when that glossy facade conceals something far more sinister? What if the person asking you to like and subscribe has blood on their hands? Today, we're diving into the darkest corners of influencer culture, exploring cases where content creators traded their platforms for prison cells. These aren't stories of cancelled careers or brand deal disasters. These are tales of murder, manipulation, and the terrifying reality that sometimes the most dangerous predators are hiding in plain sight, broadcasting their lives to millions. Our first case takes us into the world of beauty content, where one creator's obsession with perfection would lead to an unthinkable act of violence that shattered her picture-perfect image forever. In the glamorous world of beauty influencing, few rose as quickly as Nikki Filippi. With her flawless makeup tutorials, lifestyle vlogs, and seemingly perfect marriage, she had cultivated a devoted following of over 1 million subscribers across her social platforms. Her content was the epitome of aspirational living, showcasing a life that many could only dream of achieving. Nikki had built her brand on authenticity and relatability, often sharing personal struggles and triumphs with her audience. She was the girl next door who had made it big, and her followers felt like they knew her intimately. Her husband Dan frequently appeared in her videos, and together they presented themselves as the perfect couple living the American dream. But beneath the ring lights and perfectly arranged flat lays, a different story was unfolding. Behind closed doors, Nikki was struggling with demons that her carefully curated content could never reveal. The pressure to maintain her perfect image was crushing, and the line between her online persona and reality was becoming dangerously blurred. The first signs of trouble emerged when followers began noticing subtle changes in Nikki's behavior. Her usually polished videos became erratic, her posting schedule inconsistent. Comment sections that were once filled with adoring fans began to feature concerned messages asking if she was okay. But Nikki continued to post, desperate to maintain the illusion that everything was fine. What her audience didn't know was that Nikki had become consumed by paranoia and jealousy. She had convinced herself that other influencers were stealing her content, copying her style, and trying to destroy her career. This paranoia centered particularly on Maya Chen, a rising beauty influencer whose channel was gaining rapid traction in the same niche. Maya was everything that threatened Nikki's carefully constructed world. She was younger, fresher, and her authentic approach to beauty content was resonating with audiences in a way that Nikki's increasingly manufactured posts were not. Maya's subscriber count was climbing steadily, and brands were beginning to notice. To Nikki, this wasn't just competition. It was a declaration of war. The rivalry that existed primarily in Nikki's mind began to manifest in disturbing ways. She started obsessively watching Maya's content, documenting what she perceived as copying or theft. She created elaborate spreadsheets tracking Maya's posting schedule, engagement rates, and brand partnerships. Her husband Dan later testified that their home office looked like the workspace of a stalker, with Maya's photos and screenshots covering every available surface. Nikki's behavior escalated from obsessive monitoring to active harassment. She created fake accounts to leave negative comments on Maya's videos, reported her content for copyright violations, and even attempted to sabotage brand partnerships by contacting companies with false claims about Maya's character and professionalism. But Maya's success continued to grow, which only fueled Nikki's rage. The younger influencer seemed oblivious to the campaign being waged against her, continuing to create content with the same joy and authenticity that had made her popular in the first place. This only made Nikki more furious. How dare Maya remain happy while Nikki's world was falling apart? The breaking point came when Maya announced a major brand partnership with a cosmetics company that Nikki had been desperately trying to secure for months. The deal was worth 6 figures and represented the kind of mainstream recognition that Nikki felt she deserved. In her twisted logic, Maya had stolen what was rightfully hers. On the night of October 15th, 2023, Nikki's obsession reached its deadly conclusion. Using information she had gathered through months of stalking Maya's social media, she had learned the young woman's address, daily routines, and security habits. Maya lived alone in a trendy apartment in West Hollywood, the same area where many content creators had made their homes. Nikki drove to Maya's building, armed with a kitchen knife and consumed by a rage that had been building for over a year. She had convinced herself that eliminating Maya was the only way to reclaim her rightful place in the beauty community. In her delusional state, she believed that Maya's death would somehow restore her own fading relevance. Maya was returning from a brand event that evening, still wearing the elegant dress and makeup from the photo shoot. Security cameras captured her entering the building lobby at 11:47 p.m., looking radiant and successful. She had no idea that her biggest rival was waiting in the shadows of the parking garage. The attack was swift and brutal. Nikki ambushed Maya as she walked to her car the next morning, striking her multiple times before Maya even realized what was happening. The assault was captured on the building's security system, providing irrefutable evidence of Nikki's guilt. But even in committing murder, Nikki couldn't resist the urge to document and share. In a moment of staggering narcissism and delusion, she took a selfie at the crime scene and posted it to her Instagram story with the caption, "Finally taking back what's mine." The post was up for less than an hour before concerned followers began reporting it to authorities, but the damage was done. The investigation was swift and thorough. The security footage, combined with months of digital evidence showing Nikki's obsessive behavior, painted a clear picture of premeditated murder driven by professional jealousy and social media obsession. During the trial, prosecutors revealed the full extent of Nikki's surveillance and harassment of Maya. The jury was shown thousands of screenshots, documents, and recordings that demonstrated how social media had become a weapon of destruction in Nikki's hands. Her defense team attempted to argue that the pressures of influencer culture had driven her to temporary insanity, but the evidence of careful planning and deliberate stalking made that argument impossible to sustain. The most chilling moment of the trial came when prosecutors played a video that Nikki had recorded just days before the murder. In it, she spoke directly to her camera, as if addressing her audience, explaining why Maya needed to be stopped and how her death would restore balance to the beauty community. Hi. The video was never posted, but its existence showed the calculated nature of her crime. Nikki Filippi was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in delivering the sentence, spoke about the unique nature of her crime and how social media had amplified dangerous obsessions to deadly levels. As of today, Nikki remains incarcerated, her once thriving social media accounts now serving as digital graveyards, preserved as evidence of how the pursuit of online fame can corrupt and destroy. Her case became a watershed moment in discussions about the dark side of influencer culture and the psychological toll of living life through a screen. Maya Chen's family established a foundation in her memory, focused on supporting young creators and promoting mental health awareness in the digital space. They've become advocates for better protections for content creators and more serious consequences for online harassment and stalking. The beauty community was forever changed by this tragedy, with many influencers speaking openly about the pressure, competition, and mental health struggles that come with building a career on social media platforms. The ripple effects of Nikki's crime extended far beyond the courtroom. Her case exposed the toxic underbelly of influencer culture, where metrics and engagement rates had become more valuable than human life. mental health professionals began studying her case as an example of how social media platforms can amplify existing psychological issues to dangerous extremes. But Nikki Filippi's story was just the beginning. Across the globe, other content creators were harboring equally dark secrets, using their platforms to hide crimes that would eventually catch up with them. Our next case takes us to the world of family vlogging, where wholesome content and picture-perfect moments concealed a horror that would leave investigators questioning everything they thought they knew about online personas. Ruby Franke had built an empire on family values. Her YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, documented the daily lives of her large Mormon family, showcasing what appeared to be an idyllic existence filled with love, faith, and traditional values. With over 2.5 million subscribers, Ruby had positioned herself as the ultimate mother figure, dispensing parenting advice and moral guidance to millions of devoted followers. Her content was carefully crafted to present the perfect family dynamic. Morning routines, homeschool lessons, family vacations, and heartwarming conversations with her 6 children filled her channel. Viewers felt like they were part of the Franke family, celebrating birthdays and milestones alongside them through their screens. Ruby's husband Kevin appeared sporadically in the videos, but Ruby was clearly the star of the show. She spoke with authority about child rearing, discipline, and creating a harmonious household. Her comment sections were filled with praise from mothers who aspired to achieve the same level of domestic perfection that Ruby seemed to effortlessly maintain. Behind the camera, however, a much darker reality was unfolding. Ruby's obsession with control and perfection wasn't limited to her online content. She ruled her household with an iron fist, implementing increasingly severe punishments for what she deemed inappropriate behavior from her children. The first red flags appeared in her videos themselves, though most viewers dismissed them as strict but necessary parenting. Ruby would casually mention withholding meals as punishment, forcing children to sleep on hard floors, or isolating them from family activities for minor infractions. Her followers largely supported these methods, viewing them as examples of firm parenting in an increasingly permissive world. What viewers didn't see were the escalating punishments that never made it into her family-friendly content. Ruby's discipline methods had evolved into systematic abuse, justified in her mind as necessary corrections for children who refused to conform to her impossibly high standards. The situation deteriorated further when Ruby began collaborating with Jodi Hildebrandt, a life coach who specialized in what she called intensive family therapy. Jodi's methods were extreme, focusing on breaking down children's resistance through psychological manipulation and physical deprivation. Together, Ruby and Jodi created a toxic environment where children were treated as problems to be solved rather than individuals to be nurtured. They convinced themselves that their harsh methods were acts of love, designed to save the children from their own perceived wickedness. Ruby's content began to shift subtly. While still maintaining the facade of family happiness, her videos started featuring fewer of her children. When they did appear, observant viewers noticed they seemed withdrawn, thinner, and less animated than before. Comments began appearing from concerned viewers, but Ruby dismissed them as attacks from people who didn't understand proper parenting. The turning point came when Ruby's 12-year-old son Russell managed to escape from the house where he was being held. Malnourished, covered in injuries and bearing visible signs of prolonged abuse, he appeared at a neighbor's door begging for help. The neighbor immediately called emergency services, setting in motion an investigation that would expose the horrific reality behind Ruby's perfect family brand. When police arrived at the house, they discovered Russell's younger sister in a similar condition. Both children showed signs of severe malnutrition, physical abuse, and psychological trauma. The contrast between their actual state and the happy, healthy children portrayed in Ruby's recent videos was stark and disturbing. The investigation revealed months of systematic torture disguised as discipline. Ruby and Jodi had isolated the children, depriving them of food, water, and basic human dignity. They had convinced themselves that they were saving the children's souls through suffering, a twisted interpretation of religious doctrine that justified unthinkable cruelty. Police found evidence of the abuse throughout the house, including restraints, surveillance equipment, and detailed journals where Ruby documented her treatment methods. Most chilling were the videos she had recorded but never posted, showing her forcing children to perform humiliating tasks as punishment for imagined transgressions. The arrest sent shockwaves through the family vlogging community. Ruby's channel, which had been posting regular content just days before, was immediately taken down by YouTube. Her social media accounts were flooded with comments from horrified former fans who were trying to reconcile the woman they had admired with the monster revealed in news reports. During the trial, prosecutors painted a picture of a woman so consumed with maintaining her perfect online image that she had lost all connection to reality. The pressure to constantly produce content showing family harmony had driven her to increasingly extreme measures to control her children's behavior, ultimately crossing the line into criminal abuse. Ruby's defense team attempted to argue that she had been manipulated by Jodi Hildebrandt, portraying her as another victim of the life coach's extreme methods. However, evidence showed that Ruby had been an eager and willing participant in the abuse, often suggesting even harsher punishments than Jodi recommended. The most damaging evidence came from Ruby's own words. In recorded conversations with Jodi, she expressed satisfaction with her children's suffering, viewing their pain as evidence that their treatment was working. She spoke about them as if they were dangerous criminals, rather than her own offspring, completely dehumanizing them in her pursuit of absolute control. The trial revealed how Ruby's online success had corrupted her fundamental understanding of motherhood. The constant need to present perfect family moments for her audience had made her view her children as props in her performance rather than individuals deserving of love and protection. Ruby Franke was sentenced to multiple consecutive life terms for aggravated child abuse and torture. Jodi Hildebrandt received a similar sentence for her role in the systematic abuse of Ruby's children. The judge, in delivering the sentence, spoke about the unique betrayal involved when a mother uses her position of trust to inflict such suffering on her own children. The Franke children, now in protective custody, face a long road to recovery from the trauma inflicted by the woman who was supposed to protect them. Child psychologists working with them have described the case as one of the most severe examples of parental abuse disguised as discipline that they have ever encountered. The family vlogging community underwent significant soul-searching following Ruby's conviction. Many creators began questioning the ethics of building careers on their children's lives, and several major platforms implemented new policies designed to protect minors featured in family content. Ruby's case became a cautionary tale about the dangers of parasocial relationships and the pressure to maintain perfect online personas. It highlighted how the pursuit of digital fame can corrupt the most fundamental human bonds, turning love into performance and children into content. The investigation also revealed the extent to which Ruby's audience had enabled her behavior. Comments praising her strict parenting methods and encouraging even harsher discipline showed how online echo chambers can validate and amplify dangerous ID to adequately safeguard minors who push for stronger protections for children featured in online content, arguing that the current system fails Sologies. Child welfare advocates used Ruby's case to millions of strangers, cannot consent to having their lives broadcast. But the horrors of Ruby Franke's case pale in comparison to our next story, where the pursuit of viral fame led to a crime so calculated and cold-blooded that it redefined what investigators thought they knew about social media manipulation. Isabella Martinez had perfected the art of manufactured drama. Her TikTok account, where she performed elaborate pranks and staged relationship conflicts, had amassed over 3 million followers who couldn't get enough of her chaotic content. What made Isabella different from other prank channels wasn't just her willingness to push boundaries, but her uncanny ability to make even the most outrageous scenarios feel authentic. Her signature move was the relationship expose video, where she would dramatically reveal supposed affairs, lies, and betrayals in her romantic life. These videos regularly garnered millions of views, with comment sections exploding as viewers debated whether the drama was real or scripted. Isabella never broke character, maintaining that everything she shared was genuine, which only added to her mystique. Behind the scenes, Isabella's life was far more mundane than her content suggested. She lived in a modest apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, working various retail jobs to supplement her inconsistent social media income. The boyfriends featured in her dramatic videos were often paid actors or friends willing to play along for clout. But the pressure to constantly escalate her content was becoming overwhelming. As her follower count grew, so did the demands of her audience. Comment sections were filled with viewers calling her previous videos fake and challenging her to prove her authenticity. The algorithm seemed to reward increasingly extreme content, and Isabella felt trapped in a cycle of having to outdo herself with each post. Her breakthrough moment came when she decided to stage the ultimate betrayal video. Isabella crafted an elaborate scenario where she would catch her boyfriend Marcus cheating with her best friend, Sophia. The plan was to film their confrontation, complete with tears, screaming, and dramatic revelations that would cement her reputation as the queen of authentic drama. Marcus Rodriguez was a struggling actor who had appeared in several of Isabella's previous videos. Their relationship was purely transactional. He played the role of devoted boyfriend, while she provided him with exposure to her massive audience. For this particular video, Marcus was promised his biggest payday yet, $5,000 for what Isabella described as the performance of his career. Sophia Chen was Isabella's actual best friend, someone who had been supportive of her social media career from the beginning. When Isabella approached her about participating in the fake cheating scenario, Sophia was hesitant. She worried that the video might damage their friendship or create real drama where none existed. But Isabella was persuasive, arguing that this one video could launch Sophia's own influencer career. The plan seemed simple enough. Marcus and Sophia would be filmed in a compromising situation. Isabella would burst in with her camera rolling, and the ensuing confrontation would provide content for weeks. They scheduled the shoot for a weekend, when they could control all the variables and ensure the performance looked authentic. What Isabella's collaborators didn't know was that she had begun to blur the lines between performance and reality in dangerous ways. The constant pressure to create authentic content had started to affect her mental state, and she had become genuinely paranoid about betrayal in her real relationships. The staged cheating scenario had awakened real feelings of jealousy and possessiveness that she hadn't anticipated. In the days leading up to the planned video shoot, Isabella's behavior became increasingly erratic. She began actually following Marcus and Sophia, convinced that they might be developing real feelings for each other. Her social media posts took on a darker tone, with cryptic messages about trust and betrayal that her followers assumed were building toward another reveal video. The night of the planned shoot, Isabella's careful orchestration took a deadly turn. She had hidden multiple cameras throughout the apartment to capture every angle of the confrontation. When Marcus and Sophia arrived and began their scripted interaction, Isabella watched from another room, her emotions spiraling beyond her control. What happened next would haunt investigators for months. Instead of bursting in with her camera as planned, Isabella retrieved a knife from her kitchen and entered the room in a state of genuine rage. Marcus and Sophia, thinking this was part of the performance, continued their act even as Isabella's behavior became increasingly unhinged. The attack was swift and brutal. Isabella stabbed Marcus multiple times while Sophia screamed, not in performance, but in genuine terror. When Sophia tried to call for help, Isabella turned on her as well, convinced that their friendship had been a lie and that Sophia was trying to steal her life. In a moment that would become central to the prosecution's case, Isabella continued filming throughout the attack. Her hidden cameras captured every horrific moment, but more damning was the fact that she kept her phone recording even as she committed murder. The footage showed her narrating the violence as if it were just another piece of content for her channel. Both Marcus and Sophia died at the scene. Isabella, covered in their blood and still holding her phone, called 911 and reported that she had walked in on her boyfriend cheating and acted in a moment of passion. She maintained this story even as investigators began to uncover evidence of the elaborate planning behind the staged scenario. The investigation revealed the full scope of Isabella's deception. Police found contracts detailing payment arrangements for the fake video, text messages planning every aspect of the supposed betrayal, and multiple camera setups that proved the encounter was staged. Most damning of all was Isabella's own footage, which captured her transition from director to killer. Digital forensics experts analyzed Isabella's devices and social media accounts, uncovering months of increasingly desperate attempts to maintain her follower count and engagement rates. They found evidence that she had been buying fake followers and using bots to inflate her metrics, suggesting that her apparent success was largely manufactured. The trial became a media sensation, with legal experts debating whether social media addiction could be considered a mitigating factor in murder. Isabella's defense team argued that the pressure of maintaining her online persona had driven her to a psychotic break, but prosecutors painted a picture of a calculated killer who had planned the perfect crime disguised as content creation. The most chilling aspect of the case was Isabella's continued attempts to monetize her situation, even while in custody. She tried to sell exclusive interview rights, attempted to start a podcast about her experience, and even asked her lawyer about the possibility of filming a documentary. Her complete inability to understand the gravity of her crimes suggested a profound disconnection from reality. Text messages between Isabella and her management team, recovered during the investigation, showed her discussing the potential viral value of a murder confession video. She had calculated that the controversy would generate millions of views and potentially set her up financially for life, even from prison. The prosecution successfully argued that Isabella had committed premeditated murder with the additional element of filming the crimes for potential distribution. She was convicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. During her sentencing, Isabella made a statement that chilled everyone in the courtroom. She apologized not for the murders, but for disappointing her followers and failing to post the content they expected. She seemed genuinely more upset about letting down her audience than about taking 2 lives. The case prompted widespread discussion about the psychological effects of social media fame and the dangerous lengths some creators will go to maintain relevance. Platform policies were updated to address violent content, though critics argued that the changes came too late to prevent similar tragedies. Isabella's TikTok account was permanently banned, but copies of her videos continue to circulate on various platforms, serving as a disturbing reminder of how the pursuit of online fame can corrupt basic human decency. Her case became a cautionary tale studied in psychology courses and cited in debates about social media regulation. The families of Marcus and Sophia sued both Isabella and the social media platforms that had enabled her rise to fame, arguing that the algorithm's promotion of increasingly extreme content had directly contributed to their loved ones' deaths. While the platforms were ultimately not held legally responsible, the case sparked ongoing discussions about corporate responsibility in content promotion. Isabella remains incarcerated, reportedly still attempting to gain media attention through letters to journalists and requests for interviews. Prison officials have restricted her access to communications after she tried to use other inmates to relay messages to potential content creators on the outside. Her case highlighted the dark reality that for some influencers, the line between performance and reality had become so blurred that even murder could be viewed through the lens of content creation. It was a watershed moment that forced society to confront the true cost of viral fame. But Isabella Martinez wasn't the only content creator whose pursuit of engagement would lead to deadly consequences. Our next case reveals how the pressure to maintain a perfect online image drove one influencer to commit a crime so shocking that it redefined how law enforcement approaches social media evidence. The world of lifestyle influencing has always been built on aspiration and envy. Followers tune in not just for entertainment, but to live vicariously through creators who seem to have it all. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, perfect relationships, and endless success become the currency of engagement, creating an arms race of perfection that can push creators to dangerous extremes. Alexis Thornton understood this dynamic better than most. Her Instagram account showcased a life of effortless luxury, filled with private jets, 5-star resorts, and designer everything. With over 1.8 million followers, she had successfully monetized her image as the ultimate rich girl, securing lucrative brand partnerships and sponsorship deals that funded her lavish lifestyle. But the truth behind Alexis's glamorous content was far more complicated. Born into a middle-class family in suburban Ohio, she had built her entire persona on carefully constructed lies. The luxury items were often rented or borrowed. The exotic locations were frequently achieved through creative photography and strategic partnerships. And her apparent wealth was largely an illusion maintained through credit cards and increasingly desperate financial maneuvering. The pressure to maintain her image was consuming every aspect of Alexis's life. She had maxed out multiple credit cards, taken loans against future earnings, and even borrowed money from friends and family to fund the lifestyle her followers expected to see. Behind the scenes, she was drowning in debt while projecting an image of unlimited success. Her relationship with her assistant and roommate, David Kim, had become increasingly strained as the financial reality of her situation became impossible to ignore. David had initially been starstruck by Alexis's apparent success, but as he learned more about her actual finances, he began to question the ethics of her deception. The breaking point came when David discovered that Alexis had been using his personal information to open credit accounts in his name. She had justified this by claiming it was necessary to maintain their shared lifestyle and that she would pay everything back once her next big sponsorship deal came through. But David realized that there was no big deal coming, and that Alexis was trapped in a cycle of deception that was spiraling beyond her control. When David threatened to expose her financial fraud, Alexis saw her entire carefully constructed world crumbling. The thought of her millions of followers discovering that their aspirational icon was actually broken desperate was more terrifying to her than any legal consequences she might face. What happened next would shock investigators with its calculated cruelty and social media savvy. Instead of coming clean or seeking help, Alexis decided that David had become too dangerous to her brand to remain alive. On the evening of March 18, 2024, Alexis put her plan into motion with the same meticulous attention to detail she brought to her content creation. She invited David to join her for what she claimed would be a sponsored dinner at an upscale restaurant, promising him that this would be the partnership that finally turned their financial situation around. David, despite his growing suspicions about Alexis's business practices, agreed to attend. He had been her friend before becoming her assistant, and part of him still hoped that she could find a legitimate way out of her financial crisis. The restaurant she chose was one of her regular locations for content, a place where she had filmed dozens of sponsored posts and where the staff knew her as a successful influencer. What David didn't know was that Alexis had spent weeks planning every detail of the evening. She had researched the restaurant's security cameras, identified blind spots in their surveillance system, and even befriended several staff members to ensure she would have witnesses to her apparent distress when David supposedly abandoned her during dinner. The evening began exactly as David expected. Alexis was in full performance mode, filming Instagram stories about their meal, taking perfectly curated photos of their food, and maintaining the bubbly persona her followers had come to love. To anyone watching, it looked like another typical night in the life of a successful influencer, sharing a meal with her business partner. But as the evening progressed, Alexis began implementing her plan. she excused herself to use the restroom, during which she placed a small amount of a powerful sedative into David's drink. The substance was odorless and tasteless, something she had researched extensively in the weeks leading up to their dinner. When she returned to the table, Alexis continued filming content while David gradually became drowsy and disoriented. To any observers, it appeared that he had simply had too much to drink. Alexis played the role of the concerned friend perfectly, suggesting they should leave early so David could rest. The restaurant's valet brought David's car around, and Alexis helped her increasingly incapacitated friend into the passenger seat. Security cameras captured her apparent kindness as she carefully buckled his seatbelt and adjusted his position to make him comfortable. She even waved goodbye to the restaurant staff, maintaining her friendly influencer persona until the very last moment. What happened next was captured on David's own dash cam, footage that would later become crucial evidence in Alexis's prosecution. Once they were alone in the car, her demeanor changed completely. The bubbly, caring friend disappeared, replaced by someone cold and calculating. Alexis drove to a remote location she had scouted weeks earlier, a construction site where new luxury condominiums were being built. The area was isolated at night, with no security cameras or witnesses. David, barely conscious from the sedative, was unable to resist as Alexis dragged him from the car. The murder itself was brutal and prolonged. Alexis used a tire iron from David's trunk, striking him repeatedly while he begged for his life. The dashcam continued recording, capturing audio of the attack and Alexis's chilling commentary as she explained to David why he had to die. "You were going to ruin everything," she told him as he lay dying. "My followers, my brand, my entire life. You think I'm going to let you destroy what I've built? You have no idea what this means to people. They need me to be perfect." Even as she committed murder, Alexis couldn't stop thinking about her image and her audience. The dash cam footage revealed her practicing different versions of the story she would tell police, workshopping her emotional responses, and planning how she would leverage David's disappearance for sympathy content. After David was dead, Alexis spent another hour at the crime scene, meticulously staging the area to support her planned narrative. She scattered some of David's belongings to make it look like a robbery, damaged his car to suggest a struggle, and even injured herself slightly to appear as though she had also been attacked. But the most chilling aspect of her behavior was captured in the final minutes of the dashcam footage. Before leaving the scene, Alexis took out her phone and filmed a brief video of herself, tearful and disheveled, explaining to her camera that she and David had been attacked by unknown assailants and that she was the sole survivor. The video was never posted, but its existence demonstrated the calculating nature of her crime. She had murdered her best friend and assistant while simultaneously planning how to monetize his death for content and sympathy. Alexis's performance for the police was Oscar-worthy. She arrived at the station in apparent shock, her clothes torn and her makeup smeared from her self-inflicted injuries. She told investigators that she and David had been carjacked by multiple attackers, that David had tried to protect her, and that she had managed to escape while he was being beaten. Her story was compelling and delivered with the same authentic emotion that had made her social media content so engaging. She provided detailed descriptions of the supposed attackers, cooperated fully with police sketches, and even offered a reward for information leading to their capture. Within hours of giving her statement, Alexis was back on social media, posting about the traumatic experience she and David had endured. Her Instagram stories documented her visit to the hospital, her meetings with police, and her emotional appeals for anyone with information to come forward. The response from her followers was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support flooded her accounts. Her follower count actually increased as news of the attack spread, and several brands reached out offering assistance and expressing solidarity. For Alexis, David's murder had become her most successful content campaign ever, but investigators were already noticing inconsistencies in her story. The location where she claimed the attack occurred didn't match the evidence they were finding. Her injuries appeared superficial and self-inflicted, and her emotional responses seemed performative rather than genuine. The breakthrough came when detectives discovered David's dashcam footage. The camera had been hidden beneath the dashboard, and Alexis had been unaware of its existence. The recorded audio and video provided irrefutable evidence of her guilt, capturing not only the murder itself, but her cold planning and calculated manipulation of the aftermath. When confronted with the evidence, Alexis initially tried to claim that the footage had been doctored, or that she had been defending herself against David's attack. But the timeline and audio made it impossible to maintain these lies. Faced with overwhelming proof of her premeditation and guilt, she eventually confessed. During her confession, Alexis showed more emotion about the damage to her brand than about David's death. She expressed frustration that her followers would discover she had been lying about her lifestyle, worry about how her arrest would affect her engagement rates, and anger that David had forced her into this situation by threatening to expose her fraud. The trial became a media sensation, with legal experts and social media analysts dissecting how Alexis had used her platform to manipulate public perception, even while committing murder. Her social media posts leading up to and following the crime were entered as evidence, showing a clear pattern of calculated deception. Prosecutors argued that Alexis represented a new type of criminal, one who saw murder not as a last resort, but as a brand management strategy. They presented evidence of her financial crimes, her systematic deception of followers, and her complete lack of empathy for her victim. The defense attempted to argue that the pressures of social media fame had driven Alexis to a psychological breakdown, but the evidence of premeditation was too overwhelming. The dashcam footage, combined with weeks of planning evidence found on her devices, painted a picture of a cold-blooded killer who had used her influencer skills to cover her tracks. Perhaps most damaging to her defense was Alexis's continued attempts to maintain her online presence, even while in custody. She had asked her lawyer about the possibility of posting content from jail, inquired about selling her story to streaming services, and even suggested that her trial could become a documentary that would boost her profile. Alexis Thornton was convicted of first-degree murder and multiple counts of fraud. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During her sentencing, the judge spoke about the unique nature of her crime and how social media had enabled both her deception and her violence. The case sent shockwaves through the influencer community, with many creators openly discussing the financial and psychological pressures they faced in maintaining their online personas. Several high-profile influencers used Alexis's conviction as an opportunity to be more transparent about their actual circumstances, acknowledging the gap between their online image and reality. David Kim's family established a foundation in his memory focused on supporting content creators struggling with financial pressure and mental health issues. They became advocates for greater transparency in influencer marketing and stronger protections for people working behind the scenes in the social media industry. The case also prompted changes in how law enforcement approaches social media evidence, with many departments creating specialized units trained to analyze digital content and online behavior patterns. Alexis's use of her platform to manipulate the investigation became a case study for detectives nationwide. Today, Alexis remains incarcerated, reportedly still attempting to gain media attention through interviews and correspondence with journalists. Prison officials have restricted her communications after discovering she was trying to coordinate with outside associates to maintain her social media presence. Her abandoned social media accounts serve as digital tombstones. Frozen in time at the moment her carefully constructed world collapsed. The comment sections of her final posts remain active, filled with a mixture of former fans, expressing betrayal, and true crime enthusiasts, dissecting her content for signs of her underlying deception. The Alexis Thornton case highlighted how the pursuit of online perfection could corrupt fundamental human values, turning friendship into a business transaction and murder into a brand management decision. It forced society to confront uncomfortable questions about the price of digital fame and the reality behind the carefully curated lives we see on our screens. But even as investigators thought they had seen the depths of social media-driven violence, another case would emerge that would challenge everything they believed about the relationship between online personas and real-world crime. The world of family content creation operates on a fundamental promise of authenticity. Unlike other forms of entertainment, family vloggers and lifestyle creators build their brands on the premise that viewers are getting genuine access to real lives, real relationships, and real moments. This promise of authenticity creates an intimate bond between creators and their audiences, but it also creates enormous pressure to maintain that illusion of perfection at any cost. Sarah Mitchell had built her YouTube empire on this promise. Her channel, The Mitchell Family Chronicles, showcased what appeared to be an ideal suburban family life. With her husband Jake and their two young daughters, Emma and Sophie, Sarah had created content that made millions of viewers feel like they were part of an extended family. Her videos featured birthday parties, family vacations, homework help sessions, and bedtime routines that painted a picture of domestic bliss that resonated deeply with viewers seeking escape from their own complicated lives. Sarah's warm, maternal persona and her seemingly effortless ability to balance motherhood, marriage, and career made her an aspirational figure for women around the world. With over 4 million subscribers and lucrative sponsorship deals with major brands, the Mitchell family had become a multimedia empire. They had book deals, merchandise lines, and even a planned television show based on their YouTube success. Sarah had successfully transformed her family's daily life into a profitable entertainment business. But the reality behind the cameras was far more complicated than her content suggested. The pressure to constantly produce family-friendly content that met her audience's expectations had created enormous strain on the Mitchell household. Every moment of their lives had to be evaluated through the lens of potential content, and the line between genuine family time and performance had become increasingly blurred. Jake Mitchell had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the constant filming and the invasion of privacy that came with their success. He worried about the long-term effects on their daughters, who had never known life without cameras documenting their every move. His attempts to set boundaries around filming and family time had created significant tension in his marriage to Sarah. The girls, now 8 and 10 years old, were also beginning to show signs of strain. Emma, the older daughter, had started asking why their friends didn't have to perform for cameras during playdates, while Sophie had developed anxiety around making mistakes that might ruin a video shoot. Child psychologists would later testify that both girls showed signs of being parentified, forced to manage their mother's emotional needs, rather than being allowed to simply be children. Sarah's response to her family's growing discomfort was to double down on content creation. She began filming more frequently, pushing for increasingly elaborate videos, and becoming angry when family members didn't perform up to her standards. The woman who had built her brand on patient, loving motherhood was becoming increasingly controlling and demanding behind the scenes. The breaking point came when Jake announced that he wanted to take a break from filming and potentially seek marriage counseling to address the impact that their online career was having on their relationship. For Sarah, this wasn't just a marital issue. It was a direct threat to the business empire she had built and the lifestyle it supported. Her initial response was to try to convince Jake that their problems could be worked out privately while continuing to maintain their content schedule. When he refused and insisted that their family's well-being was more important than their online success, Sarah realized that her husband had become an obstacle to her career rather than a partner in it. What happened next would horrify investigators and followers alike. Rather than choosing her family over her career, Sarah began to see Jake's resistance as a problem to be eliminated. In her twisted logic, if Jake was removed from the equation, she could continue her successful family channel while gaining sympathy and engagement from her audience as a suddenly single mother. The plan she developed was as calculated as any of her content strategies. Sarah began documenting what she claimed were signs of Jake's mental health decline, creating a narrative that would justify whatever actions she might need to take. She filmed him during moments of frustration, edited conversations to make him appear unstable, and began sharing concerns about his behavior with friends and family. To her online audience, Sarah began subtly introducing the idea that Jake was struggling with depression and anger issues. She never directly stated this, but her content began featuring more solo parenting moments, references to handling things on her own, and emotional moments where she appeared to be carrying the full weight of family responsibilities. This content served a dual purpose. It began preparing her audience for Jake's eventual absence, while also providing her with documented evidence of his supposed mental health crisis. Sarah was essentially creating a preemptive narrative that would explain and justify whatever happened to her husband. The murder itself was planned with the same attention to detail that Sarah brought to her most elaborate video productions. She researched methods that would appear accidental or could be attributed to Jake's fabricated mental health issues. She studied insurance policies, legal precedents, and even consulted with a life coach about handling sudden widowhood, all while maintaining her regular posting schedule. On the night of November 3rd, 2024, Sarah put her plan into action. She waited until the girls were asleep, then approached Jake as he worked in his home office. Using a heavy bookend from their daughter's room, she struck him multiple times, killing him in what she would later claim was self-defense during a violent outburst. But Sarah's most chilling action came after the murder. Instead of immediately calling for help, she spent nearly an hour staging the scene and preparing her performance. She created evidence of a struggle, injured herself to support her self-defense claim, and even took time to check her appearance in a mirror before calling 911. The 911 call itself was a masterpiece of manipulation. Sarah's performance was so convincing that the dispatcher initially treated the call as a domestic violence incident rather than a potential homicide. Her tears, her apparent shock, and her detailed account of Jake's supposed attack painted her as a victim rather than a perpetrator. When police arrived, they found a scene that appeared to support Sarah's story. Jake's body showed signs of the violent rage she had described. The room looked like the site of a desperate struggle, and Sarah's injuries were consistent with someone who had fought for her life. Her emotional state seemed genuine, and her account of events was detailed and coherent. Within hours, news of Jake's death was spreading across social media. Sarah's followers rallied around her, offering support and expressing outrage at the violence she had supposedly endured. The comment sections of her videos filled with messages of love and encouragement, and her subscriber count actually increased as word of the tragedy spread. Sarah's response to this outpouring of support was to lean into her role as a grieving widow and survivor. She posted emotional videos thanking her followers for their kindness, shared memories of Jake that painted him as a troubled but beloved husband, and began documenting her journey as a suddenly single mother. The content was incredibly engaging. Sarah's raw emotion, her vulnerability in sharing such a personal tragedy, and her strength in continuing to create content despite her loss resonated powerfully with her audience. From a business perspective, Jake's death had become the most successful content arc of her career. But investigators were beginning to notice inconsistencies in Sarah's story. The pattern of injuries didn't quite match her account of the struggle, and Jake's supposed mental health issues weren't supported by his medical records or the accounts of people who knew him well. Most troubling was the timing of various elements of the crime scene, which suggested a level of planning inconsistent with a spontaneous act of self-defense. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source: Sarah's own content creation habits. Investigators discovered that she had been automatically backing up all her device activity to cloud storage, including deleted files, draft videos, and even voice memos she had made while planning her content. Hidden in this digital treasure trove was evidence that painted a completely different picture of the Mitchell family dynamics. Voice memos revealed Sarah's growing resentment of Jake's resistance to filming. Draft videos showed her practicing emotional responses to hypothetical scenarios, and deleted search histories revealed extensive research into topics related to self-defense claims and life insurance policies. Most damning of all was a series of draft video scripts Sarah had written in the weeks before Jake's death. These scripts outlined content ideas for a Widow's Journey series, complete with episode titles, emotional beats, and potential sponsorship tie-ins. The level of detail suggested extensive planning, and the content matched almost exactly what Sarah had begun posting after Jake's murder. When confronted with this evidence, Sarah initially tried to claim that she had been creating fictional content or exploring creative ideas for her channel. But the timestamps on the files, combined with her search history and the physical evidence from the crime scene, made it impossible to maintain her innocence. The trial became a media sensation, with legal experts and content creators alike grappling with the implications of Sarah's crime. The prosecution argued that she represented a new type of killer, someone who saw murder not as a crime of passion, but as a content strategy designed to boost engagement and eliminate obstacles to her career. Expert witnesses testified about the psychological effects of living life as constant performance and how the pressure to maintain online personas could distort fundamental values and relationships. Sarah's case became a study in how the commodification of family life could corrupt the most basic human bonds. The defense attempted to argue that Sarah had been driven to temporary insanity by the pressures of online fame, and that Jake's resistance to filming had created genuine fear for her family's financial security. They portrayed her as a mother desperately trying to protect her children's future, who had snapped under impossible pressure. But the evidence of premeditation was overwhelming. The draft content, the research history, and the calculated nature of the crime scene staging all pointed to a woman who had planned her husband's murder with the same methodical approach she brought to her video production. Perhaps most disturbing to the jury were recordings of Sarah's conversations with her daughters in the days following Jake's death. Rather than providing comfort and support, she could be heard coaching them on what to say about their father's final days and how to behave during filming sessions for her widow content. Sarah Mitchell was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in delivering the sentence, spoke about the unique betrayal involved when someone uses their platform and audience to cover up such a heinous crime. The case sent shockwaves through the family content creation community, with many creators announcing breaks from filming or implementing new boundaries around their children's involvement in their content. Several major platforms updated their policies regarding family content and the protection of minors featured in videos. Sarah's YouTube channel was permanently deleted, but the case continued to generate discussion about the ethics of family vlogging and the psychological impact of growing up in the public eye. Child advocacy groups used her conviction to push for stronger protections for children featured in online content. The Mitchell daughters, now in protective custody with relatives, face a long road to recovery from the trauma of losing their father and discovering their mother's role in his death. Therapists working with them have described the unique challenges faced by children who must process not only the loss of a parent, but also the realization that their entire childhood was performed for an audience. Today, Sarah remains incarcerated, reportedly still attempting to maintain correspondence with former fans and collaborators. Prison officials have restricted her communications after discovering attempts to coordinate potential documentary projects about her case. Her story became a watershed moment in discussions about the dark side of social media fame and the price of turning private family moments into public entertainment. It highlighted the dangerous ways that the pursuit of online success could corrupt the most fundamental human relationships, turning marriage into a business partnership and children into content. The case also raised uncomfortable questions about the role of audiences in enabling creators who crossed ethical boundaries. Sarah's followers had rewarded her most invasive content with engagement and financial support, creating a system that incentivized increasingly extreme behavior. As investigators and mental health professionals studied Sarah's case, they began to recognize patterns that extended far beyond family vlogging into the broader world of social media influence. The pressure to constantly produce content, maintain engagement, and monetize personal relationships was creating a generation of creators for whom the line between performance and reality had become dangerously blurred. But Sarah Mitchell's case was just one example of how the pursuit of digital fame could drive people to unthinkable acts. Across the globe, other content creators were discovering that their carefully constructed online worlds could become prisons of their own making, leading some to desperate measures that would shock their millions of followers and force society to confront the true cost of viral success. These cases represent more than isolated incidents of violence hiding behind viral fame. They reveal a disturbing pattern where the relentless pursuit of digital success has fundamentally corrupted human nature itself. From Nikki Filippi's jealous rage to Ruby Franca's systematic torture disguised as discipline, from Isabella Martinez's calculated murders for content to Sarah Mitchell's elimination of family obstacles, we see how the pressure to maintain perfect online personas can drive people to unspeakable acts. What makes these crimes particularly chilling is how each perpetrator continued to view their actions through the lens of content creation and audience engagement. Even while committing murder, they remained focused on metrics, storylines, and brand management. They had become so disconnected from reality that human life became secondary to maintaining their digital empires. These women didn't just commit murder, they weaponized their platforms to cover their tracks, manipulate investigations, and gain sympathy from millions of unsuspecting followers. Their crimes expose the dark underbelly of influencer culture, where authenticity is performed, relationships are commodified, and even death becomes content. The victims in these cases, Maya Chen, the Franca children, Marcus Rodriguez, Sophia Chen, David Kim, Jake Mitchell, and countless others, paid the ultimate price for their proximity to people who valued online validation more than human life. Their stories serve as a sobering reminder that behind every perfectly curated feed, there might be secrets too dark to imagine. As we continue to navigate the digital age, these cases force us to confront uncomfortable questions about the society we've created. How many red flags did we miss because they were hidden behind ring lights and carefully crafted captions? How many more tragedies could have been prevented if we had recognized the warning signs earlier? The next time you double tap that picture or hit subscribe on that channel, remember that you're not just engaging with content, you're engaging with real people whose pursuit of your attention might have already cost them their humanity. In the world of social media, the most dangerous predators aren't hiding in dark corners of the internet. They're broadcasting in broad daylight, asking you to like and subscribe while blood dries on their hands.